My daughter-in-law blocked my path to the lake with her hand on my chest. We've discussed this, Robert. The ashes stay in the urn. It's more dignified. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The morning light came through the curtains the way it always had, but Catherine wasn't there to see it. I sat at the kitchen table with coffee going cold in my hands, looking at the wooden box the funeral home had given me. Simple cherry wood, brass nameplate. Catherine Marie Richardson, 1949 to 2024. 75 years she'd walked this earth. 52 of them beside me. The house was too quiet. Had been for the 6 days since the hospital. Since I'd held her hand while her breathing slowed, stopped, and the machines confirmed what my heart already knew. We built this house in 1978. Bought the land with money from our first real contract, medical equipment manufacturing, the foundation of Richardson Medical Solutions. Catherine had sketched the floor plan herself. Big kitchen, she'd said. Family needs room to gather. The company employed 400 people now across 3 facilities. $68 million in annual revenue. My son Daniel was CEO, had been for 5 years since I stepped back. Since Catherine's first cancer diagnosis. She'd beaten it then. Rang the bell, did the walk, celebrated with ice cream because that's who Catherine was. She celebrated the small things. This time was different. Stage for pancreatic. For months from diagnosis to the morning, I woke up alone. My phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa, Daniel's wife. Reminder, funeral is at 2 p.m. We've handled all arrangements. Just show up on time, please. They'd handled everything. Planned the service while I sat in hospital chairs. Selected the flowers, wrote the obituary, chose the photos for the display boards. I'd been too numb to fight it, too lost in the specific silence of a house where someone should be but isn't. I picked up the wooden box. Light. Too light for everything it contained. Catherine had been clear about what she wanted. We'd discussed it during the first cancer, updated her wishes after the second diagnosis. Written instructions, notarized, filed with our attorney. Cremation, simple service, ashes scattered at Mirror Lake, where I'd proposed in 1972. That's where we started, she'd said, holding my hand in the oncology waiting room. That's where I want to end. You and me and that water, Robert. Promise me. I'd promised. I dressed in my gray suit, the one Catherine had picked out for our 40th anniversary. You need at least one good suit, she'd said. For important occasions. She hadn't said like my funeral, but we'd both known. The funeral home was downtown, all dark wood and soft music, and people who spoke in whispers. 200 folding chairs facing a podium, flower arrangements that cost more than Catherine would have approved of, and photo boards showing her life in chronological snapshots. Catherine at 23, our wedding day. Catherine holding baby Daniel. Catherine cutting the ribbon at our first facility opening. Catherine laughing at some party, head thrown back, fully alive. I stood looking at that last photo until someone touched my elbow. Dad. Daniel appeared in an expensive black suit. Vanessa beside him in designer morning wear. You should sit. People are arriving. I want to say a few words during the service. Vanessa's expression tightened. We've already organized the speakers. Daniel's eulogy, Pastor Williams, and Susan from the Hospital Foundation. Adding more will make it run long. I'm her husband, and Daniel is her son. We've created a beautiful program. She gestured to printed cards on every chair. Celebration of life for Catherine Marie Richardson. Please don't disrupt the flow. I looked at my son. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Fine, I said quietly. The service was professional, polished. Pastor Williams spoke about Catherine's charity work, board member of 3 foundations, volunteer coordinator, donation drives. All true, but surface level. He'd met her twice. Susan from the hospital foundation praised Catherine's fundraising. She raised over $2 million for patient care programs. Daniel's eulogy focused on her strength. My mother faced every challenge with grace. She taught me that success comes from perseverance. All true, all missing the point. No one mentioned how she sang off-key while cooking, how she kept every birthday card our employees' children ever made for her, how she'd learned medical equipment engineering from textbooks while raising a toddler because she wanted to truly understand what we were building. No one mentioned the woman I'd loved for 52 years. After the service, people filed past offering condolences. She was remarkable. Such a loss. You must be so proud. I held the wooden box against my chest. Daniel found me by the photo boards. We're doing a reception at the Grandview Club. Vanessa arranged everything. I need to go to Mirror Lake. His expression shifted. Dad, we talked about this. The ashes will be interred at Memorial Gardens. We purchased a beautiful niche, engraved nameplate, everything proper. She wanted Mirror Lake. That was an old conversation. Before she understood the options. Memorial Gardens is dignified, permanent, accessible for family to visit. She wanted the lake where I proposed. Vanessa appeared. Robert, we've made the arrangements that make sense. Scattering ashes is messy and frankly morbid. Catherine deserves better. Catherine deserves what she asked for. She wasn't thinking clearly at the end. Vanessa's voice was patient, like speaking to a confused child. The morphine, the decline, people say things. We're making the decision that honors her legacy properly. I'm her husband. I make this decision. Actually, Vanessa said carefully, as her medical power of attorney and executor of her estate, Daniel has legal authority over final arrangements. We've already paid for the niche. It's done. I looked at my son. You're her executor? Mom updated her 2 years ago. Made me executor, gave me power of attorney. She wanted to spare you the burden of decisions during grief. 2 years ago, during the first cancer's remission, Catherine organizing, planning, trying to protect me. But she'd also given me the wooden box and made me promise about the lake. I'm scattering her ashes at Mirror Lake, I said. That was her wish. Vanessa stepped between me and the door. Her hand pressed against my chest, not quite a push, but a barrier. We've discussed this, Robert. The ashes stay in the urn. It's more dignified. Around us, mourners were watching, waiting to see if I'd cause a scene at my own wife's funeral. I stepped back. Fine, I said again. But I was done saying fine. I left through the side door, got in my Lincoln, and drove to my attorney's office with Catherine's wooden box on the passenger seat and 52 years of partnership burning in my chest. Richardson looked up from his desk when I walked in without an appointment. I need Catherine's will, I said, and I need to know exactly what authority Daniel actually has. Harold spread the documents across his conference table while I sat with Catherine's ashes beside me. Catherine updated her 26 months ago, he said. Daniel is executor and medical power of attorney. Those designations handle estate administration and end-of-life medical decisions. What about final arrangements? Harold flipped through pages. There's a separate document, disposition of remains authorization, filed the same day as the will update. He pulled out a single page. It names you, Robert, as the sole authority for all decisions regarding funeral, burial, cremation, and ash scattering. I took the paper. Catherine's signature at the bottom, clear and strong from before the second cancer. Above it, typed instructions. My husband Robert Richardson shall have complete and sole authority over the disposition of my remains according to my stated wishes, which are cremation followed by scattering of ashes at Mirror Lake. She filed this separately from the will. Yes, deliberately, I guess. She wanted Daniel to handle the estate, but she wanted you to handle this. Harold's expression was gentle. She knew exactly what she was doing. I sat back. Of course she had. Catherine always thought 3 moves ahead. Daniel doesn't know about this document. Not unless Catherine told him. It's filed separately, and he wouldn't have encountered it during the medical power of attorney process. Harold paused. Robert, legally, you have absolute authority here. Daniel and Vanessa can't stop you from scattering the ashes. I looked at the wooden box. They already bought a niche at Memorial Gardens. That's their money wasted. The legal authority is yours. I drove to Mirror Lake as sunset approached. The park was empty, midweek evening, cooling autumn air. I walked to the spot where I'd knelt in 1972 with a ring I'd saved 6 months to buy. Catherine had been wearing jeans and a blue sweater. Hair loose, no makeup, laughing at something I'd said. I'd planned a speech but forgotten every word when I looked at her. Yes, she'd said before I even asked the question. Whatever you're about to say, yes. I sat on the bench overlooking the water, opened the wooden box. Her ashes were gray and white, fragments of bone mixed with dust. The remains of hands that had held mine, arms that had steadied me, a heart that had believed in everything we built together. I couldn't do it alone. Not yet. I closed the box and drove home. The next morning, I called my attorney again. Harold, I need you to pull every document related to Richardson Medical Solutions ownership structure. What are you looking for? Leverage. The documents arrived by messenger that afternoon. I spread them across my dining room table, the same table where Catherine and I had drafted our first business plan in 1974. Richardson Medical Solutions was privately held. I owned 62% of shares. Daniel owned 20%, acquired over years of employment and performance bonuses. The remaining 18% was distributed among key employees and investors. As majority shareholder, I controlled the board. Daniel was CEO, but he served at the board's pleasure. My pleasure. I found the shareholder agreement Catherine and I had drafted in 1995. Section 7, Paragraph 3. Major decisions including executive compensation, facility closures, and leadership changes require approval of shareholders holding at least 60% of company stock. I called Harold. Schedule an emergency board meeting for Friday. I'm invoking Section 7 to review executive leadership. Robert, are you sure? This is your son. I'm sure. I spent 3 days reviewing company financials. Daniel had run RMS successfully, revenue up 18%, new contracts secured, expansion into international markets. But I found other numbers too. Daniel's compensation, $1.8 million annually, up from my $650,000 salary when I was CEO. Vanessa on the payroll as strategic communications consultant, at $320,000 for work I couldn't verify. Company cars, country club, membership, executive retreats at luxury resorts. I found emails, Daniel to Vanessa, discussing how to manage Dad's involvement and minimize his interference with modernization efforts. Vanessa's reply, he's stuck in the past. We need to position him as emeritus, honorary only, no real input. I found the proposal to rename the company RMS Medical Technologies, removing Richardson entirely. The family name feels dated. Vanessa had written, we need a forward-facing brand. Catherine's name built that company as much as mine. She'd worked production lines, managed inventory, handled payroll when we couldn't afford an accountant. The name honored her. They wanted to erase it. Friday morning, I arrived at the RMS headquarters at 8 sharp. The building Catherine and I had designed in 1989, expanded in 2003. Our initials were carved in the cornerstone, RMR and CMR, Robert and Catherine Richardson. The board meeting started at 9. 8 members around the table, including Daniel at the head. He looked surprised to see me. Dad, this is unexpected. What's the emergency? I took my seat at the opposite end. Set Catherine's wooden box in front of me. We're here to discuss leadership and company direction. Vanessa, sitting beside Daniel though she wasn't a board member, leaned forward. Robert, if this is about the funeral arrangements, this is about my wife's legacy and whether this company still honors it. I distributed packets to each board member. Financial summaries, email excerpts, the rebranding proposal. Daniel has been an effective CEO by traditional metrics. Revenue is up. Contracts are strong. But he's also systematically dismantling the principles this company was founded on. Daniel flipped through the packet. That's not fair. I've modernized operations. You've tripled your salary while freezing wages for production workers. You've put your wife on payroll for phantom consulting work. You've proposed removing your mother's name from the company she built. Board member Patricia Okonkwo, who'd known Catherine for 20 years, looked up sharply. The rebranding proposal removes Richardson. It's a market positioning strategy, Vanessa said. The medical device industry is moving toward tech-focused branding. Catherine Richardson spent 40 years building this company's reputation, I said. She worked production lines pregnant with Daniel because we couldn't afford additional staff. She mortgaged our house 3 times to fund expansion. She earned supplier relationships by learning engineering specifications while other executives were networking at golf courses. I opened the wooden box. 6 days ago, at her funeral, my son prevented me from honoring her final wishes because his wife decided they knew better. They purchased a niche at Memorial Gardens, ignored her written instructions, and physically blocked me from taking her ashes to the place she'd requested. The room went silent. Daniel is executor of her estate, I continued, but I have sole legal authority over the disposition of her remains. Catherine filed a separate document ensuring I could honor her wishes regardless of anyone else's preferences. She knew. My voice caught. She knew she couldn't trust Daniel to respect what she wanted if it conflicted with what looked impressive. Daniel's face flushed. Dad, that's not. We thought Memorial Gardens was more appropriate. You thought your judgment superseded hers. Just like you think your vision for this company supersedes the values she and I built it on. I looked at each board member. I'm exercising my rights as majority shareholder to call for a leadership review. Daniel will remain CEO under the following conditions, or I will vote to replace him. I distributed a second document. 1. All compensation is capped at 15 times the lowest employee salary. Daniel's current salary is reduced accordingly, effective immediately. 2. Vanessa Richardson is removed from payroll. Any legitimate consulting work will be contracted through outside firms with transparent billing. 3. The company name remains Richardson Medical Solutions in perpetuity. This will be written into corporate bylaws. 4. We established the Catherine Richardson Memorial Scholarship, funded by 5% of annual profits, providing education assistance to employees and their families. 5. Daniel will publicly acknowledge his mother's contributions to this company's success in a letter to all employees and in updated company materials. 6. I resume active board participation with full financial oversight. Vanessa stood. This is a vendetta. You're punishing Daniel because you're grieving. I'm protecting what Catherine built because my son forgot where he came from. I looked at Daniel. Your mother loved you. She made you executor because she trusted you to be fair. She gave you opportunities in this company because she believed in you. But she also knew you had your grandmother's streak, my mother's tendency to prioritize appearance over substance. That's why she filed that separate document. That's why she protected her final wishes from your control. Daniel stared at the papers. If I don't accept these terms, the board votes on new leadership. I have 62% of shares. You have 20. The math is simple. You'd fire your own son? Catherine would fire you herself if she were here. I touched the wooden box. She built this company to matter, to provide good jobs, to treat people with dignity, to contribute something meaningful beyond profit margins. If you can't honor that, you shouldn't lead it. Patricia spoke carefully. Robert, these are significant changes. Daniel has performed well. Performance without character is just numbers on paper. Catherine taught me that. I looked around the table. I'm 76 years old. I don't want to run this company, but I will if that's what it takes to preserve what my wife spent her life building. Daniel can choose to lead it the right way, or someone else will. Vanessa grabbed her purse. This is insane. Daniel, don't let him bully you, Vanessa. Daniel's voice was quiet. Please leave the boardroom. She stared at him. Excuse me. This is board business. You're not a board member. He wouldn't look at her. Please wait outside. Vanessa's expression went cold. She walked out without another word. Daniel read through the terms again. His hands were shaking slightly. The salary reduction alone is over $1 million, he said. Your mother and I lived on $30,000 a year when we started. We built something that mattered more than money. I paused. Can you? Daniel signed the terms at 11:47 a.m. His signature was shaky, but it was binding. Harold notarized the document right there in the boardroom while the other board members witnessed. Vanessa was waiting in the hallway. She took one look at Daniel's face and knew. You caved, she said. You actually let him do this. He's right, Daniel said quietly. About most of it. He's manipulating you with guilt about your dead mother. Don't. Daniel's voice cut sharp. Don't talk about her like that. I walked past them carrying Catherine's wooden box. I had one more thing to do. Mirror Lake looked the same as it had 40 years ago. 52 years ago. The water reflected autumn trees. The air smelled like pine and coming winter. I'd called Daniel before driving over. I'm scattering your mother's ashes at Mirror Lake this afternoon. You're welcome to come. Just you. He arrived 20 minutes after I did. Parked his BMW beside my Lincoln and walked to the bench where I sat. Vanessa's furious, he said. I imagine so. She thinks you've destroyed me professionally. What do you think? Daniel sat down, looked at the wooden box between us. I think Mom would have done exactly what you did. Probably harder. We sat in silence for a while. A duck paddled across the water. Somewhere a dog barked. I'm sorry, Daniel said finally. About the funeral. About the niche. Vanessa said it was more dignified, and I let her decide. I've been letting her decide a lot of things. Your mother always made decisions together with me. Every major choice, we talked through it. Disagreed sometimes, but we respected each other enough to hear each other out. Vanessa doesn't work like that. I know. I touched the wooden box. Your mother knew too. She was worried about it, the last few months. Not worried enough to say anything directly. She didn't want to interfere in your marriage, but worried. Daniel's eyes were wet. I haven't been honoring her. At the company, at the funeral, I've been so focused on looking successful that I forgot about actually being good. You can fix that. Can I? I opened the wooden box. Help me scatter her ashes. Then we'll talk about what comes next. We walked to the water's edge together. The spot where I'd proposed, where Catherine had said yes before I finished asking. I poured half the ashes. They drifted on the surface, caught the light, slowly dispersed into the water that had been witness to the beginning of everything. Daniel poured the other half. His hands were steady. I love you, Mom, he said quietly. I'm sorry I forgot what you taught me. The ashes floated, scattered, became part of the lake. We stood there until the last traces disappeared. Over the next 6 months, things changed. Daniel started showing up at the production facilities, learning workers' names, asking about their families. He had lunch in the employee cafeteria instead of executive dining rooms. He apologized to the staff about the frozen wages and reinstated cost of living increases. The Catherine Richardson Memorial Scholarship launched in January. First recipient was Maria Santos, production line supervisor, whose daughter was headed to nursing school. Daniel presented the check himself and gave a speech about his mother's belief in investing in people. He separated from Vanessa in March. She couldn't accept the reduced lifestyle, the loss of status, the fact that Daniel was choosing company values over her vision of success. The divorce was quiet and expensive. I went to the office 3 mornings a week, made coffee in the break room, the same brand Catherine had always bought, and walked the production lines. People told me stories about Catherine, small kindnesses I'd never known about. Birthday cards she'd sent. Times she'd covered shifts when someone had a family emergency. She knew everyone's name, Maria told me. Every single person in this building. She'd ask about our kids like she actually cared. She did care, I said. Daniel and I had dinner every Sunday at the house. He helped me cook, badly, but with effort. We talked about the company, about Catherine, about the mistakes he was working to correct. Vanessa said you were stuck in the past, he told me one evening while burning garlic bread. But you and Mom weren't past. You were foundation. I built on sand trying to look modern. You built on bedrock because you knew it had to last. Your mother built it. I corrected. I just helped. You built it together. He looked around the kitchen. That's what I never understood. Success isn't about being the smartest or most impressive person in the room. It's about finding someone who makes you better and building something that matters to both of you. In April, the company hit a milestone. 50 years since Catherine and I had filed incorporation papers. Daniel organized a celebration at the headquarters. Not a fancy gala, just cake in the break room and a display of photos showing the company's history. Catherine was in most of them. On production lines, at ribbon cuttings, in the office, always working, always present. Daniel gave a speech to the assembled employees. This company exists because 2 people believed in building something that mattered. My father, Robert Richardson, brought the vision and the determination. My mother, Catherine Richardson, brought the heart and the wisdom. Everything we've accomplished, every job we've created, every life we've touched, it started with their partnership. He unveiled a plaque for the main lobby, Richardson Medical Solutions. Founded 1974 by Robert and Catherine Richardson. Built on the principle that success means nothing if it doesn't lift others up. People applauded. Some of the longtime employees were crying. I stood in the back, watching my son become the leader his mother had hoped he'd be. That evening, I drove to Mirror Lake alone. Sat on the bench as the sun set over water that held Catherine's ashes. He's doing better, I told her memory. Still has a lot to learn, but he's trying. Actually trying. The water rippled. A breeze moved through the trees. I miss you, I said. Every morning I wake up and forget for a second that you're gone. Then I remember, and it's like losing you again. But sitting there, watching the light fade over the lake, I felt something shift. Not healing exactly, it was too soon for that. But acceptance. Catherine was gone, but what we'd built together remained. The company, the values, the foundation that would outlast both of us. Daniel was carrying it forward now. Imperfectly, but earnestly. That was enough. I still live in the house we built. Still sleep on my side of the bed, leaving hers empty. Still make 2 cups of coffee some mornings before remembering. But I also go to Sunday dinners with Daniel. Go to the office and watch the company thrive under leadership that finally honors what Catherine and I intended. Watch the scholarship recipients graduate, the employees buy homes, the community benefit from the principles we established. Daniel brought his new girlfriend to dinner last month. Sarah, a social worker, quiet and kind, nothing like Vanessa. She asked questions about Catherine, about the early days, about how we built the business. Daniel says his mom was the real force behind everything, she said. We were partners, I told her. Different strengths, same goals. After they left, I sat with Catherine's photograph, the one from our 40th anniversary, her in the blue dress, me in the gray suit. He found someone good, I said. Someone who might actually deserve him. The house was quiet, but it was the right kind of quiet now. The kind that comes after a life well lived, a fight well fought, a legacy secured. I keep the wooden box on the mantle, even though it's empty. A reminder that Catherine got what she wanted in the end. Her ashes in the lake where we began. Her company operating on principles she believed in. Her son finally understanding what she tried to teach him. Some mornings I drive to Mirror Lake and sit on the bench. Watch the water, drink coffee, talk to the woman who made everything possible. We did it right, I tell her. It took a while, but we got there. The water ripples in response, and I choose to believe she hears me. That's enough. That has to be enough. And somehow, in the quiet morning light with my hands wrapped around a warm mug and her memory reflected in the lake, it is.